Oh, it's lovely to be here again. How are you all? I hope you've been well looked after. I'm sure you have. And I'm sure I've been missed, haven't I, panel?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well done. You see, I just primed them for that before we started. You will know them all, of course, by now. You'll know Alex Laxton,
Hello,
who was once the youngest managing director in the country. I'm not sure if you are still. Do you
Probably.
think?
No, I'm not. No.
But you are young and very efficient.
It's okay.
Oh, frighteningly so. Now, Mike North, he is the lead governor of the NHS Solent Trust. So you have a sort of managerial role in that, don't you?
Interfering role more than managerial.
Interfering.
Yes,
right.
That's the on the public eyes and ears, and tend to sort of use them quite well.
We'll get round to that subject in a minute. How could we fail? And David Banks, who I know has entertained you twice in my absence. Welcome, David.
Hello, Chrissie.
And he also was a managing director,
yeah.
but sensibly decided to do something else for a living. And but you know how to manage people.
Well, 25 years, I got a lot of experience. I've written widely on it, and I've written my own book on management and the 5 points of management, in fact. And I'm glad now to be doing some other things, slightly more, dare I say, interesting.
It's interesting, just before we started this afternoon, we were talking about managing and how easy or difficult that is and whether you were born to it. I mean, you're very young. How do you know how to manage so well?
I don't know. I think you pick it up and you read a lot. Education is the key, I think.
I think you also have, though, you're the right sort of blotting paper for the right sort of ink. You know, you take it in because it's what you're naturally attuned to actually take in. You know, I studied engineering for many, many years. When I became managing director, which as I say I did for 25 years, the first thing I realised was not how much I knew, but how much I didn't know. And it was a matter of studying then accountancy, because money's the lifeblood of all business, as we all know. And if you don't know how to actually operate that and do your business planning and your forecasts and actuals and so on, if you can't do that, you can't go forward. But you have to have the personality that can take that on and do it.
Yes, we were talking about it.
Yeah, the most important word is communication.
Communication.
You've got to be a good communicator, good listener and a communicator. At all levels, upwards and downwards.
Well, I was saying to you just now, I remember when I worked in television first time round, and I remember we were ruled by fear. So we had morning meetings, and if you didn't come up with a bright idea, you were pretty much, well, you were certainly made to feel like a lesser human being and given something horrible to do that day, sent out on a nasty job. So, that's ruled by fear, but that doesn't seem to happen as much now, does it?
Well, industry's targets. I mean, you've still got to set and try and establish targets. I mean, every year, I used to write a 1, a 3 and a 5 year business plan and then update them each year. So you're setting yourself targets and targets for the company. From that business plan, you then work out where you think your margins are going to be and what eventually your bottom line is likely to be. So you then look at all your figures and you try then to make them happen. So you're looking at targets the whole time and then reviewing them.
Yes.
And the dreaded appearance on the planet of the KPI, the key performance indicator, which is a box ticking exercise, and if you've ticked it, you've done it, but not necessarily so.
Oh, yes.
Those are the enemies at the door. Because I still believe that performance is about talking to people, watching them, helping them, bringing them into a team culture to work together to produce.
Well, we'll no doubt come to the NHS in a minute. How could we not? But I'll tell you a funny thing. Someone who fancies himself as a bit of a manager is George Clooney.
Right.
And the papers are all full of him and his lovely wife today. George Clooney has decided he's going to sit down with the German Chancellor Angela Merkel and tell her how the migrant crisis should be sorted out. So is he a manager with hidden talents, an actor with managerial skills, or what's this all about?
Well, the only qualifications I'm aware of is that he is quite a well-known, extremely good actor. So presumably he does that quite well, so he can act in all sorts of roles. A number of actors work, of course, as United Nations ambassadors for children, and Angela Jolie, of course, is one.
Yep.
Whether he's got qualifications to sort out what the joint efforts of the United Nations and the EU are having a real hard go at, I kind of doubt.
See, the cynics amongst us would say his wife is a human rights lawyer, isn't she? And perhaps she's got something to say, and he's been told what to say.
And the sycophants that surround him have built his ego up enough to say, you're the one to say it.
Well, that's true, isn't it? I mean,
I think so.
can actors ever really believe the truth about, when so many
Themselves,
people are
no.
telling them they're
No,
wonderful?
they live in a bubble in many respects.
Yeah.
The reality check is not there every day because there are so many people telling them that they are good and they're marvellous, they're all the other things and so forth. And I suppose if you're bombarded with that 24/7, you're in danger of believing it after a while.
I'm sure you are.
And then you think you have the panacea for all ills on the planet and you can go out and solve them. Now that is a bit of a jaded view, but I genuinely believe that the combination of his good lady having that a connection with the human rights thing and the fact that somebody's told him and said, well, use your stardom and your persona to see if you can change the world.
Is that so wrong?
No, I don't think it's wrong.
Use your wives, partners to change the world?
No, I don't think
Well,
it's
I mean,
not
as a couple, you bring, you know, to whichever area you're working in, you bring joint skills and abilities. So no, the only thing is this is a rather major problem, isn't it? I mean, it's terrible, really, and for an actor to think he's going to sort it out, I just think it's unlikely.
Interesting, though. We'll have to eat our yes. If he does do it, won't we? We'll have to eat our words.
But isn't it great for his
No,
PR person, his PR company, who've managed to get him all this extra publicity, and the fact that Angela Merkel is even going to talk to him, because I'm sure she's got a very busy schedule.
Well, I must say, the news is in his favour today because they've agreed a tenuous ceasefire in Syria, haven't they?
Yes.
What
Yeah.
do we hold out much hope for that?
Well, it's the Russian. I think it's all to do with other parties, isn't it? The Russians and their bombing and so forth, and there's lots of other factors involved there. I mean, I'm a great believer in Churchill's mantra, jaw is better than war. And if you can get around to talking and resolving problems that way, in some way, by bringing everybody in to talk and have their five penneth, as it were, you're better off than firing bullets at each other and causing collateral damage, which is the result.
Except, of course, ISIS aren't one of the group.
No. But
No,
to me, when any party that's engaged in this terrible war in Syria, when they see what's happening to the people, the population, the whole country almost on the move, nothing that they're fighting for can be worth it, surely. When you see that 60% of their buildings are absolutely destroyed in that country, how can they ever pick up? And will these people that have come over here ever go home? Not that I'm suggesting they ought to, but I mean, will there ever be a home for them to go back to? My father was in Bomber Command Aircrew during World War II, and you know, he saw from on high what bombs did, because he was a bomber crew member. But the amount of Germany and England that was actually destroyed as a percentage of all the buildings was very small compared to the percentage in Syria. I just don't think there's a country for them to go back to.
No, I mean, they'd have to start again, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
And,
And who funds that? You know, where does that come
Nations
from?
presumably would have to start again. I don't know. But it's, anyway, we'll wait and see what happens there.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, so just coming back to the NHS, since you're part of it, it's an interesting story today in the papers, saying that NHS bosses have distanced themselves from suggestions that they backed a new junior doctor contract being imposed after their names were linked to it. And, of course, Jeremy Hunt is saying it will be imposed. But, I mean, you're in a trust, and they're saying that 20 chief executives have said, oh, no, nothing to do with us. We wouldn't do that to our junior doctors.
Well, I suppose if they're put on the spot, that's what they would say, wouldn't they? If you see what I mean. Well, they're not going to put their hands up and say, oh, yes, I said that. Because what they're trying to do is to walk this narrow line between making sure that their trust, in this particular instance, their executives of the trust, are all on board and happy, but at the same time looking, what I call, at something that is got to happen, perhaps, should happen, to move the NHS forward. I mean, I don't want to go into great detail, but there is complicated. Yeah, it is extremely complicated. But you see, and I don't propose to be an expert on the junior doctors and the way they're working. They work very long hours. One side is saying, well, you're going to get paid for that, and they say 99% of junior doctors will be better off. I'm yet to see that in figures, in real terms. But the issue is far, far greater. This is just a little tip of the iceberg sitting above this great sea of problems, because the real trouble with the NHS lies below, the iceberg below.
Well, I think Jeremy Hunt's going to have a go at grades beneath. I mean, OK, then, you're Jeremy Hunt. Do you understand? I mean, first of all, I don't think the great British public really, do we? We don't understand what the argument's about wholly, because you hear one side saying, oh, they're going to have more money. What are they beefing about? And then you hear them saying, but actually it's not in the good of the people who we're serving. Do you think people understand it? If you had to vote on it, would you say you understood it?
No, I don't fully understand it.
I don't think any of us do.
I don't.
You don't.
And I don't think a lot of people are making judgments about it and going either way when they don't really know the full facts of the whole story. So it's difficult. I don't think anybody does, do they?
Well, I mean, one of the main issues, of course, is trying to make the NHS 100% a 7-day-a-week organisation, isn't it? And you know, the fact that there seems to be some statistics that would say that you may have a lesser chance of surviving something serious at the weekend than during the other days of the week. So there's the issue there that they want to get that, and clearly I don't think anybody would argue with that. You know, you can have a car accident or a heart attack any day.
Yeah.
So it does need to be converted to a 7-day-a-week.
Don't you think it needs somebody like yourselves to go in there with some common sense? I'm not sure about politicians, and I'm not sure about people who don't really understand. You need people with management skills.
Well, the first thing that strikes me, and we were talking about this off air before we started, was the fact that I cannot understand why these doctors are required to work such long hours. Now, to me personally, there needs to be more doctors. Now, if there's a problem recruiting doctors, what is wrong with the package? What is wrong with their earnings? I mean, they are vocational people who go into medicine because they want to. So what is it that's so wrong? Why can't we have more?
We'll come back and answer that question in a minute. I can see Mike's got something to say on that. And it was interesting before we actually started that there is a problem getting doctors, which I must say I hadn't realised. So we'll come back and talk about that. And then we'll get on to more light things like Valentine's Day and red roses. Why not? So we hope you'll join us after the break, and we'll be here.